Hello everybody, my name is Zen and welcome back to more of our Wildstar beta coverage where we are once again taking a look at one of these starter zones. This time we're going to look at the Northern Wilds, and just like the other three starter zones, it also starts with the cinematic.
Transport 1, you're hit. You need to get out of there. Scan it for alternate landing zones. There. You can just make it to the Northern Wilds.
Roger that. All passengers, brace for impact. This ain't gonna be pretty.
Anyone alive down there? Please respond, Shuttle 3. I'm detecting movement. We have another survivor down there. Repeat, we have another survivor.
So this is, of course, straight out of the tutorial zone that you come out of with the Exiles. If you remember, you get in the ship and you come down to Nexus, but obviously you get shot down, and just like all the other zones, there's another landing spot where other people come in at, and for the most part, the one over there isn't a crash landing, it's a landing, and you come by this crash landing, you're able to see that and pick up all those quests. It's different, you know, in the way that it does it. It's different from the other zones, which I like. However, this zone is definitely one that's been around a long time. I remember seeing this specific zone, the Northern Wilds, back at like Gamescom 3 years ago when they first showed videos of the game, people playing it and stuff. I remember watching these videos going, wow, this game looks a lot like WoW. And back then it did. There's been a lot of iteration in the game since then. And it's really cool to see, you know, the changes that they've made. It's almost like when you go back and watch, you know, old Star Wars, The Old Republic videos. Like, that game looked really terrible back when it was in its first stages, and then they iterated and they came up with different things on how the game actually, you know, functions, and then it changed. And it's kind of the same thing here. If you go back and watch those old videos from like 3 years ago, you'll notice that the game has had some significant changes to it, which is good because it makes it that much better. You know, they took all the bad parts of what it was back then and they just refined it and made it better. This zone specifically, though, like I said, has been around a very long time, and it's actually one of my favorite of the starter zones. It's got really good flow, it's a cool environment, and for the most part, it's just a lot of fun to play through, which isn't usually something you say about any starter zone. But off over to the west of where we're currently at, there's actually an explorer mission that really, you know, got this zone up on the list for me. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to just go up the side of this mountain, up to the top, and you put down your little beacon thing as you do as an explorer. But the best part of it is that it's got like an avalanche, right? So there's, you know, there's crap falling down the side of the mountain, and you have to dodge the avalanches. And they come at, you know, very specific times, so it is a jumping puzzle in the, you know, basic sense of the entire idea of it. But you just go up the side of the mountain, you get to the top, you put down your beacon, you're good to go. But the way you go about doing it is really cool. And the fact that they're even able to add something like that into the game just really solidifies why I'm enjoying the heck out of this game. So what we're doing for the quest here is basically there's a huge storm and you have to fix the sky. Don't ask me, but you fix it and then it's no longer super blizzardy. But it is cool that the weather effects change in the game. That's something that not a lot of games do nowadays, which is a little unfortunate, especially MMOs, where weather is a changing factor. I mean, obviously here it's kind of like an effect that you're seeing. You complete the quest and it takes away the effect. It's not like something super crazy, but it's something that you see in the player housing, as we've, you know, demonstrated in an earlier video, where you can change the environment at your player house, you know, so you can like change it to a dust storm and stuff. And that's just something that they've put into the game as a technology, so they can, you know, create some type of dust storm or some type of tornado or, you know, a blizzard. There's even an underwater effect, and it's just something that they're able to do with the engine. It's one of the technologies they've developed. So something like that, where you clean the sky, you fix the sky, whatever's happening to it, and suddenly, you know, it's no longer a blizzard anymore. It's not like in Warcraft, you know, for example, where if that happened, it would usually be a phasing thing. Like if there were meteors falling from the sky, this is obviously a made-up example, but if there are meteors falling from the sky, and then you completed the quest that somehow made magic not have meteors falling from the sky, don't ask me, then it would be a phased thing, and then you would go into a different phase. It's not the case here. It's just like an effect that you see on the screen. Either way, I think that's enough of explaining that. It's pretty easy. So overall, this zone is pretty small in comparison to the other ones. It's just laid out in a good way. So just off over to the west on the mini-map there is where the base is. And that's kind of your main questing hub. Unlike in the other zones where you jump around to different bases as you go, and it's more of a structured flow. It's a linear flow to the zone, and you go from one end to the other. And in some cases, you see radical changes in the environment, like Levian Bay is a good example of that. Crimson Isle, not so much. You kind of see the same old, but you do get different experiences as you go. Whereas this one is definitely a Warcraft-inspired zone. It's kind of the same thing through and through. There's different parts that you get to go to. Like, we're about to go into these caves here for this quest, but it's not like it's a radically different part to the zone like in Levian Bay. This is definitely an old school designed zone. So you go into this cave, you come out of here, but when you go down to the south, that's the biggest change that you get, which is the end of the zone. So for the most part, think of it like a giant circle. Right, you start on the very west end of the circle, you make your way up to the northwest, and then into the center. And then about the center of the circle is where the base is, and then you go off over to the east, and then you go off down to the south. And each of those times that you're switching direction, you're going back to the main hub to get more quests and turn them in. So it's definitely more, I guess, focused on where you need to be going. Either way, though, I think it's a good design. Like I said, it's got a good flow. You feel like the quests are going from one to another. You never really feel too lost in this zone, which you really have to adore, because there are some zones that you can design that you just are just crazily lost. A good example of one of these kind of zones is the oh gosh, what is it? It's in Outlands and Warcraft. It always gets me. Is it Terrakar Forest? It is. That's the one. I always feel lost in that zone when I ever played it. It's a good example of a zone that isn't really flowing too well. So thankfully, I could say that all of the zones that they've developed for Wildstar, as far as going through, is basically a really well flowing questing zone where you feel like you're going from one place to another. Goodly enough, or well enough, whatever you want to call it, it feels more like Star Wars in that case, because Star Wars has a really good quest flow. I mean, that's one of the things that Star Wars does amazingly well is their questing system, between the storytelling of it and just the general flow and how you do it. Like, you get a pickup quest where you just have to go pick up some dude's book, but he gives you like an entire story of why you have to go pick it up, and it gives you a purpose to do it, right? And not only that, but the quests flow really well in that game. You're going from one spot to another, and they did a really good job designing that in Star Wars. It's kind of the same idea here. They do a pretty good job of it. As you get later on into the game, when it opens up into the next zones that you get, so like this one goes to Algarok, I think is the name of it, something like that. And, let's say on the Dominion, you're going from Levian Bay to it's a more London type, like grasslands feel. Those bigger zones are massive, and it's really hard to keep a quest flow there, but once you learn it, it is a lot better. So just keep that in mind, that the quest flow here is really good, but when you get up into the higher levels, zones become absolutely massive, and it's a little hard to keep track of where to go if you're doing it for the first time. Either way, we have a cinematic here to take a look at.
Cavalry's here. Heard you folks were having some trouble. You just hold tight, we'll get you out of there. Descending to LZ. Stand clear. All aboard, folks. Please take your seats. We're on a tight schedule. We'll have you in Fade in no time. Everyone set? And we are out of here. What the? Missile lock. We're hit! Hold steady. I think we get another hit. We lost motivator control. Can't maintain. We're going down. I repeat, we are going down.
Well, it sucks to be them. So I need to address some concerns, because I have the benefit of recording these videos at a later date. The rest I did all on that beta weekend, but these specifically I left for the end so I can address some concerns as we go. So the first thing is that there's been a lot of Wildstar videos on the channel, and I understand that. For the past 2 weeks, it's been all Wildstar all the time. We'll continue to do Wildstar videos into the future, but not nearly as much as what we did this past 2 weeks. It was just one of those things that the NDA dropped, and we needed to get content out for Wildstar so people could understand what the game is before, you know, deciding to pre-order or anything. Gives you a good idea, right? So that won't happen in the future. It's just one of those things we had to get those videos out then and there, and it, you know, it had to happen. So I apologize for so much Wildstar coverage, but we're about to be back into our normal rotation, and you'll see Wildstar videos here and there rather than all the time. The second and most concerning one, actually, is that people keep calling this game a WoW clone, or it looks like WoW, or it looks like a kid's game. But the fact of the matter is, once you play the game, you realize very quickly that it is nothing like WoW. It feels nothing like WoW. Yeah, the art style is similar, kind of. It's actually closer to Torchlight than it is to Warcraft, and that's just because of some of the artistic direction that they've decided to take with the game. But it just because it looks similar to WoW doesn't mean it's a WoW clone. It has different combat, it has similar questing to what Warcraft does, but it does dungeons in the end game. That's the focus, and that's where it drastically differs from what Warcraft actually is, especially in its current state. So just try it. You don't think it's a WoW clone, because it's not. You just have to try it and enjoy it. And that's the one thing I can say. Everybody who I've ever talked to who's played the game will tell you there's no WoW there, which is nice, because it's instantly familiar to those who've played WoW, but radically different once they start getting into it, and I think people are going to find that refreshing. However, on that note, we shall see you guys next time.
After a beating like that, they won't need these ships. Let's get these rust buckets airborne, people! Roger that. Engaging engines in 3, 2, 1.